Hello fellow mutants, welcome back to another video, and this video we're going to talk about how 2023 Star Wars discouraged the shows for the shows for Star Wars in this year will change how we see the sequel trilogy. Now, as you guys may know, I'm not the biggest fan of the sequel trilogy. I mean, I don't mind calling out stuff that I enjoyed in the sequel trilogy, like the when Rey touched the lightsaber in The Force Awakens. I thought that was pretty cool. And I like the whole concept of, like, in The Force Awakens, or not Force Awakens, Last Jedi, when they were alluding to, like, that Rey was a nobody. I enjoyed that. And admittedly, in The Rise of Skywalker, I did enjoy seeing, when Lando made his appearance. I loved seeing Lando because Lando is my favorite non-force sensitive character, and so that like immediately like got me to say, "Yeah, finally Lando's in here," because he should have been in Last Jedi. And that's just some of the things I enjoyed about the sequel trilogy. But even though I just praised the sequel trilogy, I'm not its biggest fan. I'll admit that right now. So let's see what 2020, like what they mean by Star Wars show 2023 shows will change how you see the sequel trilogy, shall we? So 2023 live action Star Wars TV show will change public perception of the sequel trilogy by offering a fresh look at the post-Return of the Jedi timeline. The Mandalorian is set 5 years after Return of the Jedi, 4 years after the fall of the Empire, and its spin-off show that expanding the same part of the timeline. Viewers are beginning to refer to this period as the Mandaloriverse, a story that features old and new characters such as Pedro Pascal as Din Djarin, the Mandalorian, and Rosario Dawson as Ahsoka Tano. Lucasfilm has currently only confirmed the release date for The Mandalorian Season 3, which will premiere on March 1st, 2023. So, literally in like 2 weeks. The two other shows set in this period are also expected to set this year, Ahsoka and Skeleton Crew. Though there are other upcoming Star Wars Disney Plus shows in the work, the Mandoverse is clearly the focus. This is a wise decision because the Mandoverse can have an even greater impact changing public perception of the sequel trilogy. And my mouse does not want to work with me for some reason. Okay, back. So, Star Wars 2023 shows are setting up the sequels. Well, it's clear that I should say clear, but it was told or hinted that the Mandalorian is setting at least some parts up for the sequel trilogy. And as D-Day Cobra, Jeremy from Geeks of Gamer says, all roads in this timeline essentially leads to the sequel trilogy. Whether you hate the sequel trilogy or love it, all roads will eventually lead to the sequel trilogy. Let's be honest. The Mandalorian Season 3, Ahsoka and the Skeleton Crew all take place around 10 years after the Battle of Yavin, and that is 5 years after Luke and the Rebellion defeated the Empire in Return of the Jedi. As a comparison, Star Wars The Force Awakens, the first entry in the Star Wars sequels, takes place 34 ABY. ABY is after the Battle of Yavin, and BBY means before the Battle of Yavin, for those newbies who are coming in. Or 30 years after Return of the Jedi. In other words, the Star Wars sequels had to jump 30 years in Luke's Star Wars timeline so that the story could catch up with how much time has passed in the real world. The problem is that 3 decades of Star Wars stories were skipped. Much of the Star Wars galaxy background and other important lore elements that would have made the sequel trilogy better were left for additional Star Wars material, such as tie-in novels and comic books. Something that the 2023 Star Wars shows can help fix. The Mandalorian, for example, is showing how the New Republic operates in its few years. The Mandalorian also seems to be using Baby Yoda to set up a Snoke cloning storyline. Those plotlines can continue through The Mandalorian Season 3, Ahsoka and Skeleton Crew, thus setting up how the galaxy takes on the sequel trilogy status quo. How Star Wars can change prequel perception in 2023? I didn't know we were going to go back in time, but okay. This would not be the first time new Star Wars released retroactively improve a film trilogy. Star Wars: The Clone Wars initially aimed at a more nuanced audience, took all concept and world building themes of the Star Wars prequels and improved on it. Granted, Lucasfilm's plans for The Mandalorian still involve stories that are relatively distant to the prequels. The Mandalorian takes place 25 years before Star Wars: The Force Awakens. Still, there are plenty of ways to connect the Mandoverse with the sequel trilogy. Moff Gideon clones research can link into Snoke and even Palpatine's resurrection. And while other stories can tell the origins of the First Order, arcs involving the Jedi can enhance Luke Skywalker's mythos, helping give the Jedi a legacy. It would be exciting to see more of Luke at his height, rather than simply go off from Return of the Jedi to his exile. And let's be real, the Jedi, Luke had a mythos, he had a legacy. I mean, to a certain extent, you could say he had a legacy by what he did in this original trilogy, but in what is considered as Legends, he had even more of a history. In Legends, he didn't run away, he didn't go in exile because he made one mistake, because he made a boo-boo. He went into exile because he essentially helped reboot the Jedi Order. He helped preserve the Jedi Order and improved upon it. And even though I just said not so long ago that all roads leads down to the sequels, I would love to see Luke trying to improve upon the Jedi. And what I mean by that is get rid of the whole attachment rule. Because when I saw Luke giving Grogu the ultimatum in Book of Boba, I was like, that move kind of reminiscent to how the Jedi would probably make their the younglings or Padawans or other Jedi choose in the Clone Wars era. So, what, is Luke Skywalker and Disney canon going to make similar mistakes as the Jedi in terms of the whole attachment rule? Or is the Disney canon Luke going to be like the Legends Luke and get rid of the whole attachment rule? Because I feel like that's what essentially caused the Jedi. Or at least one of the reasons why the Jedi were nearly extinct. Because they didn't allow attachments. They didn't allow themselves to be human. And there are multiple reasons, but for the sake of this video, that's the only reason that matters. Again, for the sake of this video. At least to my point anyways. There's you can say that the Jedi were becoming too arrogant, too cocky. They're getting narrow-sighted. That they couldn't, they also kind of got in their way of sensing the future, along with Palpatine. There are multiple reasons why the Jedi nearly got wiped out. And you can say they deserved it a little bit, but yeah. Anyways, that's a whole conversation for another time. It was If you guys want to have that conversation in the chat, go right ahead. Since I brought, I would love to see what your guys' thoughts about did the Jedi deserve what happened to them with Order 66 or no. Anyways, getting back to the topic at hand, Star Wars upcoming TV shows shouldn't focus on the Secret era alone, and I agree, totally agree. Before I read, I think the Star Wars shows shouldn't not only should it shouldn't only focus on the Sequel Trilogy era, but set up potential story plot lines that can go past the sequels. You know? Yeah, sure, have set up stories that could be told after the events of the Sequel Trilogy. But yeah, I agree with the headline. It shouldn't focus only on the sequel era. Anyways. As much as the upcoming Star Wars TV shows can improve the Star Wars sequels, that should not be their focus. Those shows like The Mandalorian, Skeleton Crew, and Ahsoka, and most likely will set up the future. There are not many. These must not feel like mere prequels. Live-action Star Wars TV shows on Disney Plus are functionally different to Star Wars: The Clone Wars in that they do not serve as an expansion of story already told. Rather, the Mandalorian is its own thing. Both Mandalorian Season 2 and Book of Boba Fett tease that Grand Admiral Thrawn could be in the Mandalorian's big bad ahead of the Ahsoka series. There was no mention of Thrawn in the Star Wars sequels, meaning shows like The Mandalorian and Ahsoka can have their own overarching storyline that does not necessarily tie into the grander Skywalker saga. Still, by offering a major Star Wars saga set between Return of the Jedi and The Force Awakens, Star Wars upcoming shows can make sure that the sequels are just a part of a larger post-Return of the Jedi story. And truth be told, I get where they're going at with that, and I think that was part of the magic of the first season of Mandalorian, and you can say the second season as well, because even though they had nods to the Sequel Trilogy, and like I said earlier, all roads will lead to the Sequel Trilogy at some point, but like that arc passage said, it has the this has the beauty, the benefit of creating its own stories. And to be fair, it did by having Mando going after Grogu in the first season, and then trying to find other Jedi, only to get that to be kind of retconned in Book of Boba, and then now going to Mandalore in season 3. But yeah, it can tell compelling story arcs in its own right. And of course my camera says freeze. But I was saying that the whole Mandalorian era can tell its own story arcs in its own right. That, sure, make nods to the prequels, make nods to the sequels, but create its own stories. And I think they could, they have this big opportunity to create their own little quote-unquote saga that is part of this Skywalker saga, pretty much, by using Thrawn. Because they're right, no mention of Thrawn wasn't even mentioned in the sequels. So at this point, we can assume that Thrawn was dealt with already at this point. So who knows? But I agree. It it could serve as way to us view the sequels in a bit better light. But it shouldn't be only on it shouldn't be its only focus on the sequel trilogy. It shouldn't only be focusing on like potential references and cameos. Serious seeing like maybe seeing like nods to stuff that we may enjoy, and seeing cameos may be cool. It may be cool, but it should also focus more so on story. The cameos and nods can be like here sprinkled here and there, but 90% of it should be focused on story. And the cameos can beautifully tie into the story, and the nods can beautifully tie into the story, then that's great. Just focus on the story, not so much on like wowing the audience, like, oh my god, like Luke Skywalker's in here, Obi-Wan's Force Ghost is in here, Anakin Skywalker's in here, oh my god, General Grievous's armor somehow made it in here, or there's a new General Grievous, you know. But it also like, I think one thing that should be told, and only because this is currently canon now, and I'm not saying that in the Mandoverse it should be told, but at some point it should be told how the hell did like Palpatine survive or get resurrected? Cause he was down in the elevator shaft, right? So his body got presumably burned. So he would have to like use like Force Essence or whatever it's called to like transfer his essentially his brain to someone else while falling. But whether it's in a game where we get to play as like the Emperor, or story, like a book, or a miniseries, we should like get an explanation of how the Emperor survived or came back to life. And if there is an explanation in canon explanation that has already been told, please let me know, because I would love to read it. I would so love to give that a chance and read it. But at the moment, yeah, the sequel trilogy is hot mess. I'm not a huge fan of it. And I hope Disney learned its lessons from the sequel trilogy and just does do better, because I do want to see Star Wars succeed. I don't want to see Star Wars being a laughing stock. At least, you know what this like. And to be fair, like Mando, Andor, Clone Wars season 7. The Bad Batch, I feel like Rogue One, Rebels, Tales of the Jedi, and Visions, or like the main things are not the laughing stock. The rest I feel like are the laughing stock, but that Disney Star Wars did. But let me know what you guys think about this article. Love you guys. Have a wonderful day. Be kind to one another, and I will talk to you following me later. And may the Force be with us all. Later, taters.